interdependent, is individually and constantly. Interdependent for your food, for your water, for your tokens that will be issued to you or withheld if you're naughty. And at the beginning of every week or so, you'll find the same amount of tokens will start off in your bank account. You can't save them up and then get above the guy next to you, because the big boys are changing their system. This is their system. They're changing it to be more efficient. At the moment, we're consuming too much. We're like the trained rats that pull the lever for the seed. We work for money to buy, and then we buy we actually reward ourselves with presents at the end of the month. You know, that's what we do it for. It's a simple Pavlovian technique. Pavlov didn't invent it. It was on the go long before him. The same way that Hegel never invented the dialectic. It's ancient techniques. In a new system, we won't need all the plastic junk from China. We won't have massive supermarkets that will put all the small shops out of business already. That was their function and intention. Marx talked about that too in the 1800s. Yeah, that's how you get rid of the competition. You eliminate what they called free enterprise by putting in the big boys who put all the hardware stores, the small greengrocers, small butchers, all that stuff out of business, and then once it's done, they jack up the prices to everything, or else they just close down and pull out. These massive warehouses they use as stores are just empty shells once all of that scaffolding is gone. They can dismantle it in a couple of days. Marx even talked about the possibility that in each nation to come, you'd have one factory that made furniture for the whole country. One factory that would make shoes for the whole country. They're talking about efficiency. And this should remind us of what Rockefeller said. He said competition is a sin. Old Nelson Rockefeller. And people think he was making a flippant joke. He wasn't. He was telling you something he truly believed in as part of his religion, this elite's religion. Competition is a sin. Yeah, it was Kissinger that talked about getting the UN troops in, not Rockefeller, just to rectify that point. So competition is a sin, you see, in their system. That's why under the guise of free trade, it's really a cartel trade. It's the authorized ones, the big boys that are allowed to trade, and the small guys can't. That's what it's all about. In Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, the Bible of Freemasonry, and it still is in the quiet circles at the top, he talked about, he says, we must accumulate wealth by any means. He said even by dealing on the stock market, any means possible to accumulate wealth and become the masters over the masters of the world. In the 1700s, late 1700s, a book was published called Proofs of a Conspiracy of a Dr. Robson, a Scotsman, who had been in the members of the Illuminati class. Now, whether it was put out as a cover to cover other things in Masonry, who knows? It probably was, actually. But he did admit that part of the plan was for philanthropic organizations to spring up. Foundations, we call them today, which would fund social movements and groups, today we'd call it political correctness, and have laws passed through their force, demanding from the government. Now that's how the Soviet Union was run. technically the Soviet means run by council. And talk to people from the old Soviet Union, and they'll tell you that NGOs, non-governmental organizations, but what they had was the hand-picked leaders at the top of these non-governmental organizations, picked by the government itself, who always demanded from the government what the government wanted to hear. Generally, it was more laws passed. And that's what we have today, is we get hamstrung and tied up with law after law after law, when leaders of these NGOs meet with politicians and police and have laws passed between them, and the public have no input because, well, you have to get into a group to be democratic, you see. Individuals don't count. Now, isn't that Soviet once again? And in the 1700s, when Robespierre and all the rest of them were writing their books of the system to come. And these guys had no love of the common man either, never did. They talked about the system. They talked about the masses having no ability to lead themselves. They also talked about the problems they'd have in a future society. And the problems wouldn't be with the masses or the crowds or the groups. The problems would be from individuals. Because in their perfect system, the individual would be the enemy. It's the individual, the uncommon man or woman, who can think for themselves and express themselves and convey simply to other people what's going on. It's that individual that becomes a threat to the system. And so individuality was scheduled to be destroyed. You can see this in the collectivism of John Dewey, the guy who brought in to really set up the American education system. John Dewey said, we'll eradicate all negative history. We won't teach it to the children. We won't tell them who killed who in the past and what groups killed whom, because it will keep old hatreds going. So they'd simply eliminate the history. And what a coincidence that's where we are today. For if you ask the average person coming out of school about wars, they'll tell you, well, World War II was fought over territory. It's a territorial enterprise. And that's it. I guess you get 100% for answering that. And some of them don't know who fought in it. Which countries? It's kind of irrelevant. In the 1950s, this Dewey method was spouted by the communists within the United States. A great saying came up. It was put all over the media, the willing media. They said, don't trust anybody over 30. That's when they were that's when they were segregating the age groups. Another part of the vital plan, or the vital part of the plan, I should say, to get the agenda into full swing. You had to separate the family unit, destroy it. You'd separate the elderly from all the rest. You'd separate the married ones with their children from those that were unmarried. And so they've been very, very successful. The average family has no one over 60 in their family now. People are actually booking themselves into retirement homes as though it's a natural thing to do, and the youngsters are encouraging them to do it. It was the people who were older at one time were wiser, and they could pass knowledge and information on and tell you, well, I saw this con back in the year so-and-so, and this is what happened. There's no one to tell them anymore. They've been successfully segregated, every age group. People should study up on Beria, the head of the NKVD, which became the KGB in the Soviet system. In the Comintern meeting of 1932 or 33, which you can find if you want to go into a library, or you can maybe waste your time on the internet. And you'll find his speech concerning the indoctrination of children incrementally where he said it used to take 30 to 70 years to alter the way of thinking, the perceptions of a generation to accept the next stage of a plan.